Did you know that over 15% of your English First Additional Language Paper 2 marks could depend on understanding just one concept? Hello, future champions. I am Professor R.A.I, your AI-powered mentor from the future. And today, we are cracking the code to one of the most frequently tested areas in your grade 12 exams, figures of speech. Every year, I analyzed hundreds of past papers, and the pattern is clear. Figures of speech questions appear consistently across all sections. Many students lose easy marks here, simply because they can't tell the difference between a metaphor and a simile under pressure. But after today's lesson, that won't be you. Hope is the thing that feathers, that perches in the soul, by Emily Dixon. That is a metaphor and personification in one powerful line. In the next 20 or so minutes, you will master what figures of speech really are and why examiners love testing them. The top 5 figures of speech that appear in every exam. Foolproof strategies to identify them instantly. The exact formula for writing perfect 2 marks explanations. Real exam questions with worked solutions. Ready to transform your paper 2 score? Let's get started. What are figures of speech? Figures of speech are tools writers use to create impact, imagery, and deeper meaning in their work. They take language beyond its literal meaning to help readers experience the text in more powerful ways. So, why are they important? They create vivid mental images. They help convey complex emotions and ideas. They make writing more engaging and memorable. And lastly, they are consistently examined in your final paper, which worth up to 15% of your marks. In the grade 12 exam, figure of speech questions typically appears in 2 forms. Number 1, identification questions worth 1 mark, and number 2, explanation questions worth 2 marks. Here's your quick check. Which do you find harder? Identifying figures of speech or explaining them? Think about it. Let's look at the most common figures of speech you need to know. Number 1, simile. A simile compares 2 different things using like or as. For example, in the short story, The Wind and a Boy, we see he moved his head on his long thin neck from side to side like a cobra. This simile compares the boy's head movement to that of a cobra. It creates a vivid image of a smooth, potentially dangerous movement, suggesting the boy has a mesmerizing quality, just as a cobra's movement before it attacks signals danger. So do Friedman's movements indicate that he is about to commit his naughty acts, which will have a huge impact. You think of another simile to describe someone's movement? Take 5 seconds to think. Number 2, metaphor. A metaphor directly compares 2 things by stating that one thing is another without using like or as. In the book Macbeth, in Macbeth's last fight with Macduff, Macbeth said, "But get thee back. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already." This metaphor suggests that just as a person who has committed sins feels guilty, Macbeth feels guilty for killing Macduff's family or is unwilling to commit another murder. The metaphor creates a powerful image of Macbeth's guilt weighing on his soul like a physical substance. Number 3, personification. Personification gives human qualities or abilities to non-human things. For example, in the poem Hard to Find, in line number 9, we read, "Words hide like they are not part of life." By giving words the human ability to hide, the poet conveys frustration at not being able to express deep emotions. This personification helps readers connect with the abstract struggle of finding the right words. In the same way that a person does not want to be found, words too can be elusive. Number 4, alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of words. In Hard to Find poem, line number 12, "As the raindrops slowly slide down gently, a repeated sound in slowly slide creates a smooth, continuous rhythm that mimics the gentle movement of raindrops on glass, enhancing the melancholy mood of the poem." The 5th figure of speech is irony. Irony occurs when there is a contrast between expectation and reality. From "My children, my Africa," when Mr. M says, "The future is ours, comrades," yet his own future is tragically cut short. This irony emphasizes the gap between Mr. M's hopeful vision and the harsh reality of the political situation, deepening the tragedy of his character. Let's look at how these appear in exam papers. Identification questions simply ask you to name the figure of speech. For example, identify the figure of speech used in line X to Y, and that will be 1 mark. For these questions, name the figure of speech clearly, and 1 word is sufficient. For example, metaphor. Explanation questions ask you to explain the relevance or effect. For example, explain why the figure of speech is relevant in this line, worth 2 marks. Now let's look at the winning formula for 2-mark questions. First point, explain what the figure of speech means in context. Second point, explain why it is effective or relevant to the passage. Connect to themes, mood, character development, or overall impact. Here's what a 2 out of 2 answer looks like versus a 1 out of 2 answer. For you to get full marks, you will write something like, "This personification gives human qualities to abstract words, suggesting they consciously evade the speaker when needed most. This is relevant because it effectively illustrates the speaker's frustration when trying to express deep emotions but finding language inadequate." For a partial marks, that is 1 out of 2, this personification gives human qualities to words. It shows the speaker's emotions. So by saying that, you are not going to get the total 2 marks, but you'll get 1 mark. These questions appear in all sections of paper 2. In novel section, usually 1 to 2 figure of speech questions. In drama section, usually 1 to 2 figure of speech questions. Short stories, usually 1 to 2 figure of speech questions. And lastly, on poetry, usually is 2 to 3 figure of speech questions. That's potentially 7 to 8 marks that depend on this skill alone. Now, let's break down how to approach these questions. Step number 1. For identification questions, read the line carefully. Determine which words are being used figuratively. Name the figure of speech precisely. For example, the figure of speech used is personification. Step number 2, for explanation questions, explain what the figure of speech means in this specific context. Explain the effect or relevance to the passage. Make connections to broader themes or character development. Now, let's look at the sample answer. The question says, explain why the personification in words hide like they are not part of life is relevant in this line. Your answer should look like this. This personification gives human qualities to abstract words, suggesting they consciously evade the speaker when needed most. This is relevant because it effectively illustrates the speaker's frustration and sense of betrayal when trying to express deep emotions but finding language inadequate. Here's your challenge. Can you identify what makes this a full 2 marks answer? Take 30 seconds to think about it. The first sentence explains the meaning, and the second sentence connects to the emotional impact and themes. That is our winning form. Let's practice with some examples from the exam. I'll set a timer to simulate exam conditions. You will have 30 seconds per question. Example number 1. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already. That is in Macbeth, Act 5, Scene 8. What figure of speech is this? It's a metaphor. Macbeth isn't literally saying his soul contains blood, but comparing his guilt to a physical substance filling his soul. Just as a person who has committed sins feels guilty, Macbeth feels guilty for killing Macduff's family. Example number 2. He thought it had touched him on the intellectual side alone, but now his imagination also was engaged, or rather enslaved, and as he lay and tossed in the gross darkness of the night and the curtained room, Mr. Enfield's tale went by before his mind in a scroll of lighted pictures. That is an extract from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, when Mr. Utterson inquires about Mr. Hyde. What figure of speech is this? This is personification. Imagination is given human qualities of being engaged and enslaved like a person. Example number 3. You once told me that it was almost as good as music. My children, my Africa. Act 2, Scene 3. When Mr. M was talking to Tammy. What figure of speech is this? This is a simile, comparing something, the school bell, to music using S. Emphasizes how Tammy enjoyed listening to the school bell in the past, which is symbolic of his love for education, which was like music to his ears. Example number 4. Unseen, he walked along the passage and out of the door through which death had come so suddenly. That is in Cry, the Beloved Country, when James Jarvis is in mourning Arthur's death. What figure of speech used in these lines? This is personification. In the same way that death is likened to a person who rushes through a door, so is Arthur Jarvis' untimely or unexpected death emphasized. Now, let's practice explaining one. He moved his head on his long thin neck from side to side like a cobra. That is from Friedman's third phase in the short story The Wind and the Ball. So write your own explanation. I'll give you 30 seconds to write. Here its expected answer. This simile compares the boy's head movement to that of a cobra. This is relevant because it suggests the boy has a potentially dangerous, hypnotic quality of his movements, foreshadowing his mischievous nature and the power he holds over other children in the short story. Just as a cobra mesmerizes its prey before striking, the boy's movements indicate he is preparing to cause trouble. Let's wrap up with some key examination tips. Tip number 1. Learn to recognize the common figures of speech instantly. Number 2. Always use the correct terminology when identifying. Number 3. Connect your explanation to the specific context of the extract. Number 4. Use brief quotes to support your explanation. Number 5. For 2-mark explanation questions, provide 2 distinct points. And lastly, practice identifying figures of speech in your prescribed texts daily. Avoid these common mistakes. Number 1. Simply repeating the figure of speech without explaining its effect. Number 2. Identifying the wrong figure of speech. Number 3. Giving a vague explanation not connected to the text. Lastly, failing to address how the figure of speech enhances meaning. Now let's do this quick quiz. Which of these would earn 0 mark as an explanation for a simile? A. It compares 2 things using like. B. It shows how the character feels threatened like prey. Number C. It emphasizes the character's dangerous nature by comparing him to a predator. The answer is A. This only defines what a simile is, without explaining its effect. This analysis shows that figures of speech represent an important component of literary analysis in this examination, worth approximately 10 to 15% of marks across sections. Learners should ensure they are well prepared to identify and explain these devices within their literary texts. Today, we have covered the most common figures of speech in your exam, how to identify them correctly, the winning formula for explaining their relevance, strategies for answering exam questions under pressure. What figure of speech will you spot in your reading tonight? Drop it in the comments below. Next week, we'll be tackling character analysis techniques that examiners love. That is another crucial skill for your paper 2 success. Remember, understanding these literary devices isn't just about passing exams. It's about seeing the beauty and power in language that surrounds us every day. That's what makes English not just a subject, but a superpower. Thank you for investing in your future today. If this video helped you, smash that like button and subscribe for weekly exam preparation that actually works. And remember, let's grow, let's learn, let's evolve together.